Hello ladies and gentlemen, TrippyAK here once again for another C++ tutorial. And this one is going to be a little bit more interesting and fun because not only are we playing with arrays and functions, but on the fly we're going to manipulate a certain little things. Now, we all know how to make an array, so let's quickly make an array. You can name your array whatever you want, but this time we're going to give a specific number of 3. Now, just do 3 numbers that you like or prefer, doesn't really matter, and then another one called whatever you want once more. But this one, gonna give it of 6. So, let's see. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Okay, awesome. So now that we have 2 arrays, what we're gonna do is pass them through a function. Now, arrays are very interesting because they hold a lot of data, and we're just gonna quickly make a small little program that will print out, let's say, the amount of scores each student has. So student alpha and student beta have different scores. Student alpha likes to skip a lot of tests and does really poorly, so he has 3. Then beta always does all the tests, so has a lot more scores. So I'm going to make a function called print array, or arg, yeah, and it's going to take 2 parameters. Two parameters that we need is first the array, and in order to establish an array, it's just like how we did last one, with the name and the x, y, or z. So, as you would think, you'd say, okay, do I put the name? No, you don't put the actual name of the array. You just say, you can do my r, and then you have to put square brackets in order to tell the computer, C++, that you are passing in an array. The next thing you need is the size of array. Now, you don't need to use the size of function because we haven't gotten to that yet. That's mostly for your curiosity of memory management, and that needs to be an integer. So now we have essentially a program that will print the array. And how would you print the array? Well, we can use a simple for loop, and before we need an initializer, which would be int 0, int x equals 0, because all arrays start at 0 regardless. And now we have int is less than, and less than of what? Well, since we are going to pass in the size of array through parameters, we don't need to know the size of the array just yet, because as we're making the function go along, it'll handle itself. So we just need size of array. So if we put in 6, it'll be 6. If we put in 3, it'll be 3. Then x++, just like before, because it'll increment through. Now in order to see the array, we need to see out, and we'll print it on the screen, and then we just have my r, yep, x. Let me end that line. So basically, these are just placeholders. Let's say an empty cup, and later on we're going to fill it up with the array, our beverage of choice. So int array, it'll go through a series of x values from 0 to the max number, which will be dedicated or dictated by size of array. So once we get that, I mean, it's not complicated to understand, but you'll see what I'm saying. Now, before we actually run this program, we have to prototype, which would be very simple, because we just do void print r, and then int my r, and int size of r. Making sure that, whoops, nope. See, sometimes copy and pasting is good, but then again, you might mess something up. And my r, awesome. So now to make these work, we could do print r, and what we have to do is pass in. Now before, when we were doing arguments and parameters, you didn't have to reiterate what type it was. So many of you might say, oh, could I just pass in alpha and then square brackets? No. C++ already knows that you're passing an array because there's square brackets right here as well as here. So there's no need. You just only need the name. Now next you need the essentially size of the array, which is dictated by the number 3 and 6. So if we do print r again, but this time beta 6, we build and run. That's quite a mess. So if there we go, give us some looking room. Now we have 3, 6, 7, 43, 5, 6, 3, 1, 4. So it literally printed out the array just by passing it. So that's pretty cool. Now you're probably thinking, can I just do in the main? Well, remember when we were talking about, hey, how about we go ahead and, programming, when you take a computer science class, you learn this thing called divide and conquer. Basically, you take an entire program, you break it up into little pieces so it's much more manageable. Right now we have print array. We can make another function that finds the average or adds them up. But why would we do that when we can just throw in the very basic little details of such in print array? Which, if you remember from the first thing I showed you with for loops, the summation of partial sums. Something along that lines, I forgot. Sorry. The technical term. But basically, we could have our int sum and equal to 0. Whoops. And then so every time that this for loop goes, we will have sum plus equal my r and square brackets x. Now what this will do is we start at 0 every time it goes through the array, let's say alpha, so it'll go 0 plus 3, 3 plus 6, 6 plus 3 plus 7, and we should get an answer. So if we print out on the screen total amount AMMOUNT, I don't really care, sum and L, we should get an adding, or well, you'll see. So 3 plus 6 plus 7 equals 17, and then all of these together equals 62. If you don't believe me, you can whip out a calculator and see it for yourself. But that's cool and all, but we're talking about grades. Is the student passing? And passing is all depending on the average. So what we could do is also see out average of grades. Now you're thinking, do I need to make another variable to hold the average? Or, because an average is the total divided by the total amount, actually. So, when I put it in this way, you'll understand. You add up all the elements of the array, then you divide by the size of the array. So instead of doing 16 divided by an arbitrary number that you have absolutely no idea, because there's a lot of students in a lot of classes in a lot of high schools throughout the entire world. So instead of just doing, making another variable called average and having it equal to sum divided by size of array, we could just easily do sum divided by size of r. And this will do exactly perfectly fine. I do not suggest going about like this for very big complex programs, because if you tweak one, you're going to tweak the other, and you much rather just do like int r avr is equal to sum divided by size of r, because they're essentially the same exact thing, but if you update one and update later, it's going to be a small mess. But for now, it does not really matter. So we build and run. You're going to see 16, awesome, and you're going to say, hey, what is going on? why is this a 5 when it's supposed to be 5.33333 and whatever stuff like that? And it's supposed to be something else. Well, before I said if you divide, C++ rounds down. It just rounds down. So it was like 5.99999 is going to round down. It's going to do a simpler thing. So if you need and want, you could change these to floats. I mean, you should do float for an averaging of grades because that's just how it goes. But then again, you wouldn't really use arrays for averaging grades. You'd actually use a vector, which I should go over really soon after I talk about the size of operation, which will explain a lot more about memory and some loops. So for now, that is the awesomeness and the power of passing arrays through a function, and also the on-the-fly, whatever you could do or think of programming. I mean, programming is an art. It's not only science, it's not math, it's, I don't know, whatever you want it to be, it is. So that is all, and see you next video.